Was Ed Ingram really bad against the Cleveland Browns? If you look at the PFF grades, you would immediately say he was atrocious and maybe he shouldn't even be playing for the Minnesota Vikings. What does the film say? Does the film agree? Or does the film say that the grades from Pro Football Focus this week are off their rocker? We're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about the comments Tua Tagovailoa made about Brian Flores and a little bit of everything to finish off this beautiful Monday evening. Welcome to the Real Forno Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Real Forno Show, hosted by the one and only Tyler Forness. A to Z Sports sought him out to be their Minnesota Vikings reporter and NFL analyst. And he's a proud contributor over at SKOL North's Purple Daily. Tyler is also the captivating host of The Good, The Bad, and The Hungry on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network, and a founding member of Vikings First and SKOL. Sorry, I forgot to take off the roller coaster.
You are just fine. All right. There's the camera. Oh, my goodness. My home screen is going bonkers today, Dave.
What's new?
Oh, I'm mad at PFF. That's what's new. We're going to have a real conversation about that. If you have been paying attention to my written work, you may have already seen it. Or if you've been paying attention to me on Twitter, you've already seen me talk about it. But I want to start off here. I like PFF. I think the concept of PFF is good. Their intentions are pure. And I also think that they are not hitting the mark right now. And this may be the hardest I've ever disagreed with PFF on something. Ed Ingram. My goodness, I don't think they like Ed Ingram, and I don't think it's one of two things. One, they genuinely don't understand offensive line play, which I don't think it is. But their rules of which they have to grade based on offensive line play, I think, based on my perception, are extremely flawed. Because they gave Ed Ingram 2 pressures on 13 pass blocking reps. One of them that he should have been charged for with a pressure was not charged with a pressure. That was the stunt everybody's talking about. He and David Questenberry blew that stunt badly. I don't know who to blame completely there, because I think some of it was a communication issue. Some of it was Ed Ingram has struggled on that. So it's really hard to give him the benefit of the doubt there. But we don't know 100% who was truly at fault. So I'm going to put it at 50-50. You can't blow that stunt. You just can't. But the 2 pressures that he was given and he was credited with, to me, Dave, were bogus. And I don't know for sure which plays he was credited pressures. So I'm coming at it from a guessing perspective, and Dalton says 2 pressures and a sack. He was not credited with giving up that sack. David Questenberry was. And that's part of it. He should have been credited with giving up that sack, but he wasn't. It was Questenberry. Why? Because Questenberry's initial guy was the looper on the stunt. So he was given the blame for that when it's not his responsibility to continue blocking that guy. It passes over to Ed Ingram because you have the defensive tackle slanting at the offensive tackle to be able to allow that looper to loop around, get in the B gap, and get the sack. So the 2 pressures that he had that I believe he were credited with. One, Dave, I want to make sure I think you and I are thinking about the same plays. One was a blitz where it was a 4 defenders versus 3 offensive linemen. They had a 3-man slide to the right, and their job was to block the linebacker and the 2 defensive linemen. They also sent the overhang safety, which that guy's responsibility becomes Kene Nwangwu. Ed Ingram does the smart thing. He takes the furthest inside guy. Number one rule in pass protection. If you have two guys and you have to pick which one, you take the guy with the shortest path to the quarterback. That's what they teach you initially when it comes to running backs. And that's what they teach offensive linemen too, as far as who to prioritize. So Ed Ingram picks his guy, stonewalls him. Kene Nwangwu gets blown up. And then Nick Mullins, it doesn't even matter. He fires an out route, a hot route to Brandon Powell, first down on a third down. Great stuff. Awesome stuff. Was that one that you believed he was charted with the pressure, Dave?
That, I hope not. That's not one. Now, I didn't look specifically at the pressures, and I saw no pressures.
You aren't able to look specifically at the pressures. So we're playing the guessing game. The only way I believe you're able to do that is with higher access with PFF. The premium subscription does not allow you to look at which specific plays were pressures. That is, I believe, considered proprietary data. So that was my guess for the first one. The second one is a hilarious pressure that I believe happened. So Ingram, he's got Michael Hall Jr. on his right shoulder, crosses over and hits the left shoulder. Ingram just knocks him into Michael Juergens. Juergens collapses to the ground. And then Ingram's like, okay, I got this guy out of the way. He's passed over to these two. I'm going to take the guy in front of me, and blocks the guy in front of him perfectly. That was considered a pressure based on my observations. I believe that was the second one.
I don't know if PFF is saying if they were within so many feet of the quarterback or if the quarterback moves. But you're not going to have a perfect pocket.
Yeah. I believe the rule here is that Ingram blocked his guy and then his guy got the pressure. Even though Ingram technically passed him off and completely eliminated him for the time being from the play, and he pushed him like literally into one of his teammates. So I kind of get that one. I don't think he should have been charged with the pressure because he did his job and then he took over the guy right in front who was a bigger threat to the quarterback than the initial guy. But that's kind of what we're looking at. The other plays, Ingram was mauling guys. He was staying at home. And I think another one of these coverage rules, Dave, which kind of drives me bonkers, is when you are blocking as an offensive lineman, sometimes you get depth. And one of the things with he did handle a stunt really well. He got some depth. And what that depth does is it allows you to be able to keep yourself set, anchor easily, and give yourself the ability to get your body and specifically maneuver yourself to leverage against that rusher. So if that rusher is a looper and they're coming at you at a 30-degree angle, you can flip your hips to 30 degrees and be able to take them straight on, making it easier for you to block. If you don't have that depth, what that does is it puts you in a poor situation for leverage. It allows the looper to potentially clip one of your shoulders, get you off balance, and then you're losing the rep. So that's what that depth will get you. And I think one of the things with the PFF grading of Ingram was some of their rules. And I don't know what the rules are. So I am shooting from the hip here. My guess is they have certain rules where you can't get a certain amount of depth, or if you, hey, once you start blocking this guy, that's your guy and you don't pass him off. I don't understand because Ingram was really, really good. And I think one of the things, Dave, I want to present this to you is something we've talked about a lot when it comes to Ed Ingram. I think the reason why people think he's not very good is twofold. One, PFF, the PFF grades. And thank you, Doug, for becoming a member. We greatly appreciate you and everybody here who's with us tonight. So far, we're at 93 live viewers. Pretty tremendous for a Monday night. Hey, don't forget State Fair. Just 3 days away. Maybe one of these days I can convince Dave to come up for the State Fair and we can rent a spot and do a show. But the other one, now I lost my train of thought because PFF grades. And 2, his play style. His play style it's reminiscent of Mike Tyson to me. Or Tyson's whole game was, I'm going to knock you out. And I'm going to punch you to oblivion. But if you miss, you open yourself up to a lot of stuff. And it's one of the reasons why he could not beat Lennox Lewis in the late 90s. Because Lewis was such a good technical boxer that when Mike Tyson went to throw that right, Lewis could take advantage and get a lot of damage. And he knew how to evade. And I think it's similar to how, what's his name? Floyd Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather could just pop you if he wanted to, but he'd rather do the dance and he'd rather make it last and give the people their money's worth. It's kind of boring, but it's incredibly effective. And Ingram likes to punch. He likes to push you down like a schoolyard bully. He just wants to pop you right here, get you off balance and get you down on the ground and then move on. He doesn't want to do the Trent Williams thing or like a lot of offensive linemen where he's going to get his hands underneath the armpits and drive you away. Remember that scene from The Blind Side, Michael Oher, where he just takes the guy and blocks him down the field for 70 yards and pops him over the fence? That is the kind of drive blocking we're talking about. Ingram doesn't do that often. He wants to pop you and he wants to knock your block off. There's merit to that, but there are drawbacks. And I think part of the reason why people have such a negative viewpoint on Ingram is because of that playing style.
Now, there's one play in particular that highlights that.
You're talking the Kene Nwangwu like 5-yard dive play, right? Where he pops the guy, but then the guy still ends up making the tackle?
Yeah, but it was 8 yards downfield. We got 8 yards on the run.
Okay. My brain thinks it was 5, but 8 yards, that's still very good.
It's 8 yards. He chip blocks, and this is where I agree with Dalton. He didn't miss a chip block. He was getting to the second level every single time. And then he takes on the linebacker and just pops him in the chest and knocks him back 5 yards. And he goes to follow him, and he's standing there, and this is where I blame on both plays where I saw him do that. There was one that we got to gain about 3 or 4 yards that he did it as well. But he was engaged on that one at the second level. On both cases, the runner went to the runner's left and got tackled. Whoever he had engaged, disengaged, and was part of the tackle. I don't blame that on Ed. Ed had taken his player out of the play. I blame that on the running back because the running back should be taught when you're following blockers downfield, you go to the side that their butt is pointing at. So if Ed's got him and has grabbed him or has pushed him to the left, you go to the right. Now, on that 8-yard gain, there was somebody coming down from the right, but there was still space. That was the route to go. The running back went left. The linebacker grabbed, disengaged. It was only an 8-yard gain on a running play. Yeah. And, but when I sat there and watched the film today, I looked at each rep looking for two things. One, first and primary, did he win his rep? Or better yet, did he not lose his rep? There wasn't a single rep up until we can get to that looper that you could say he lost. He won every last single one of them. And whether it was one-on-one, double teams, I thought he chipped well and went to the second level. I thought he dished off and got the blitzer because there are rules, and it's usually you get the guy inside of you that's quickest to the quarterback. If you're playing guard, it's generally the rule. But he did not lose a single rep. He won all of his reps. None of them. Runs were positive yards. Pass protection, he didn't let anybody in other than the stunt rep with Quisenberry. And to me, there's no way PFF should go as low as they did. I'm sorry, you play 21, 22 reps, and you have one bad rep as a lineman, and that one looks to be communication. That's not bad. That's actually pretty damn good. And so when I saw the score, I was like, and I was pissed off Sunday because the one thing that stuck in my mind was that stunt that he didn't seem to handle well.
Yeah.
But today when I watched it, I was like, no, he's playing well. There's nothing wrong with that. And taking in the fact that he's playing with guys that he's not going to be playing with on Sundays.
Mm-hmm.
He's not in there with the starting lineup on Saturday. He was in there with the twos. So I think people, when I look at the tape, like I said, first thing I look for, did he win the rep? Or better yet, did he not lose the rep? Right? My boy Juergens, he lost some reps. And it was bad. But Ed did not. Then I'm looking at technique. Could there have been something he did better? Could he grab and drive block like you were explaining? I like that. I like that style. But I also like hey, I'm going to punch you in the chest to move you back 5 yards. That works too. I was looking at that. I was looking at, it was his hips square to the line of scrimmage. And when he turned them, did he correctly turn them? There was a play that went to the left and he blocked out and then took a step into the backfield. I think it may have been a pass or a play action or something to the left. And he turned around and he pivoted and he was blocking what was going to be a defender coming in to try to chase from the backside and just stopped him. There was no chance. There was no chance that player was going to catch up from the backside and catch where everything went. He stopped it. If I was PFF, he'd get a 2 for that. A positive, because he wasn't on the play side, but he did his job and he prevented something. Now, I know PFF's rule, they'd probably give him a 0.5 because he wasn't on the play side, but he did exactly what he's supposed to. And it's those things I look for. I look for, obviously, did he win? Secondly, is the technique. Is his technique sound? And I didn't see either of those. So,
yeah,
until you get to that stunt. Now, that stunt, I blame more on Ed. Now, but that may not be the case. It also depends on the running back's rule. Was the running back taking the guy that was coming from the far right outside of who Quisenberry had? Or was the running back supposed to take the guy that looped in the middle? I don't know. I don't know what rules they're playing by. I don't know what they're instructed to do.
Well,
but to me,
I have
looked like
I have the play up.
To me, that looked like it should have been 100% on Ed. Ed should have used his right hand to help with the guy Quisenberry had, and then slid inside to get that looper. And we know Ed's had a problem with that.
So I'm kind of looking at the play, and you're talking about the running back. Well, Gaskin doesn't even stay into block. He goes right out into a route. He delays real quick, and then he releases off into the flat. Ingram's problem... not play side. Backside. Away from the stunt. So one of the things that interested me about the stunt is I'm watching Ed. So when Ed engages with Michael Hall, 51, the guy that's he is the tackle that's crossing over to the right tackle. Okay. So his job is to occupy both guys so the looper can get through the B gap. Okay. what Ingram does really bugs me. And I think there's criticism for him, but instead of staying upright, he bends just a little bit to try to get to Hall. Hall's not even trying to engage him, so Hall doesn't even play this very well. Like, Hall kind of engages him, kind of swats at him, but doesn't like really try. He doesn't even really try to get to the tackle. So he's playing it really, really odd. But Ingram, instead of just like, hey, butt down, chest out, push, no, he's got butt out, waist over, and he's pushing. And because of that, his head goes down, completely misses the looper, and then he looks around, he's like, oh, crap. And by that point, Mullins is already hit. And you could tell he's just like, ah, man. And that play, he deserves a lot of criticism for. Dock him, but it's the rest of it. And one of the problems I have, like especially preseason with like grades like Pro Football Focus, the smaller the sample size, the more extreme the grade. So if Ed Ingram had this kind of game over the course of 70 snaps, probably grades around 65. Like that's my guess. The small sample size really harms your grade, because what the small sample size does is it elevates each play. Each play matters more to the overall grade. If you go to the free throw line 30 times and you miss 3 shots, you hit 90% of your shots. All right. If you go to the free throw line 10 times and you miss 3 shots, you're hitting 70%. It is a significant harm to your overall score if you have more perceived negative plays than positive ones in a small sample size.
Now, on that particular play, what was Juergens doing? Because that's the other person that may have had responsibility for that looper. If he was doubling with who was playing guard on the left side.
Okay. So Hall is lined up at the 4-eye. 96 is lined up as a wide 9. And as a 2-eye, the inside shade of Ed Ingram's shoulder. So he's right guard, so his left shoulder. So 92 goes from being a 2-eye and crosses over into the other A gap. He's not just crossing over to the other A gap. 92 is looping from the outside of the A gap on the right all the way around left tackle. So when that happens, what Juergens does is he follows 92. And because he follows 92, he doesn't even see the looper. So with what their protection rules are, I don't know if that's a fault of Juergens or if it's a fault of Ingram. Sometimes when we break down film, we can't have all the answers, and it kind of sucks because I would like to understand what Juergens was supposed to do here. If he sees him cross his face like that and go around, is Juergens supposed to flip his hips and go back to the right? Is he supposed to stay and basically help double and triple team the other defenders on this side? You know, I really don't know. I don't. And that's part of the annoying thing. But we could talk about this play all night. This was a bad play. And they didn't even credit him with the bad play like they should have, which is what makes this grade even more wild, Dave. He should have been credited with the sack here because of the stunt. He shouldn't have had a single other pressure. Not a single one.
I saw.
You could maybe say...
I watched every single rep. He won all his pass blocking and all his run blocking.
If you want to give him a pressure where he pushes Michael Hall into Michael Juergens, okay. I think better minds can disagree on that point, but I get it. Any other play in pass protection, it's crap. And I challenge all of you to think about this. And I want to give credit to a friend of the show, Luke Brown of Locked On Vikings. He said this on the Minnesota Football Party today. Are you mad because you thought Ed Ingram was bad? Or are you mad because somebody else thought Ed Ingram was bad? I think that was a really, really good point from Luke that I wanted to share here today. Did you think Ed Ingram was bad based on watching the game? Or are you mad because PFF's grading said he was bad and you haven't taken the time to watch film, which if you can't take the time to watch the film, that's okay. You don't have to. It is my job. And I love it. So I would do it anyway. NFL Plus.
It's just like me on Sunday. I was hard on Ed because that stunt pissed me off because I thought that was his. And it wasn't until today when I went back and physically watched every single play, how he lined up, whether it was a run or whether it was a pass, and how he did, that it was, no, Ed played well. He did not lose, except for that one play. He won. Every last one of them. 20 reps.
Yeah. I want to address this from Jared Pribble. Ingram has too many moments where he doesn't know who to block and lets guys through. I would disagree with that. I think he has too many moments where he tries to knock them out and they don't get moved off of their block, and then he gets beaten by them. I think that's the problem with Ingram rather than he doesn't know who to block. Unless you're talking specifically about stunts. Stunts are really, really hard. And it takes a lot of practice reps and communication and understanding how to pass those off. And I think Ingram does a much better job with a guy like Brian O'Neill next to him than he does with David Quessenberry. But I wouldn't say that he has too many moments where he doesn't know who to block. I think he does a good job with that. And I think we saw that on Saturday, especially when they had that overload blitz on the right side. And I think, Dave, is that actually you?
No.
That's the guy. Okay. Yeah. Overall, I thought Ingram played well. I thought he played really well. And if you end up going back and watching the film and you disagree, I respect that. But please don't just default to like the PFF grade. Use that as a baseline and work with it to try and figure out if you're right or wrong. Because if they would have given Ingram a 56, I wouldn't have batted an eye. I'm like, okay, I thought he was good, but that's slightly below average. That's fine. But when I saw those grades, I'm like, what? Excuse me. And then you get a bunch of people in my industry, going after Ingram saying, oh, PFF grades were bad. And I'm like, did you watch the film? Did you watch Ingram play football? And the answer, no. NFL Plus.
They watch the game, but it's different when you're sitting there watching the game and you're watching the play. You're tracking the ball. You're tracking, certain players. You're not specifically looking at, all right, Ed's lined up on this. What do we have for a defense? Does he have man over? How many defenders are on his side of the ball?
Mm-hmm.
Is there a linebacker there? You're not looking at that stuff. When the game is going, you're wrapped up in the game. You want to say, hey, can Nick Mullins throw a pass to Jalen Naylor for a touchdown, right? That's what you want. It's not the Ed Ingram stuff. It's having to go back after the fact and look at it, and it's absolutely, that's the proper way to look at it. Now, it is what it is. You can usually see when he screws up, and yes, I agree there are times when he seems to have blocked, pushed, and he's standing out there like, what am I doing? But generally, he's already won that rep, and it's not a loss. I would like him to have that keep going, pick the guy up and bury him over the fence type attitude, but that's not Ed. I want to thank Cole for the super chat. Thank you, Cole. Appreciate it. And he's asking about a projected 53-man roster.
Yes. So timing with that is going to be really weird because Dave has two old bloggers on Sunday, and that's him and Darren.
Mm-hmm.
I will have one, but by the time we actually do video on it, the Vikings may have made a bunch of their cuts already. So there will be one in some way, shape, or form on the channel. Dave and I might have to find a way to do like more of a special episode or something like that, or we'll just take the risk and start it on Monday night and just hope that the Vikings haven't made all their cuts yet. We'll have something for you, I promise. Jared had another really interesting comment, Dave, and I think we should talk about this because it is an important part of the Ed Ingram discussion. Curious where KOC's head is at with Ingram. And Ingram was the only starter on offense to play. The only other one on defense was a Caleb Evans. And Evans really isn't a full-blown starter. If you were to put together the starters right now, he's not one of them. He's probably cornerback 4 because you have Ingram, Griffin, and Byron Murphy. Yeah. So the Ed Ingram thing is interesting. And I'm going to pull up the quote from Kevin O'Connell because he was the only one to play. He says, and I quote, "I just think these reps are so vital. And I tell you guys all the time, we've got an individual plan for every player on our team, what we think based upon reps, what we think based upon getting them game ready. See Ed go out there. Thought he did some really good things in the run game. Pass pro for the most part was pretty good. We got beat on one kind of stunt there on the third down, but those are great reps for Ed to get out there. He's a captain today. And like Ed's being ready to go today, even coming off quite a few reps in the joint practice setting." End quote. So he was asked right after that if he was going to have Ed play if Dalton Risner was healthy, because Risner has now missed 2 preseason games. He says, Kevin O'Connell, "Would have loved to see Dalton get some snaps today, and yes, I would have had Ed Ingram play regardless." I think they just want to get Ed reps because he's young.
That's what I was about to say. I think they're just trying to get some mileage on him. Mm-hmm. And you talk about how quarterback needs 10,000 reps to change something in his motion and how he's playing ball. It's no different for linemen. They need reps too. Mm-hmm. And they're not getting full-blown hitting reps at 100% until the preseason games start off, because you get a little bit of bump, but there's no tackling, there's no nothing. So they're the ones cheated out the most. Anything that goes with full-blown hitting and anything on the defense that goes to, full speed take to the ground, it doesn't happen anymore in the offseason until we get into the preseason games. That's it. And I think he's just trying to put some mileage on him so he can settle down and get it. But I'm fine.
Yeah. I think Ed Ingram is the unquestionable starter for this team. And I'll be honest, I don't want to hear about Dalton Risner being a starter for this team because he's not. He wasn't going to be coming into training camp. He's not going to be coming out of training camp. The only way Dalton Risner starts is, one, he's got to make the team. You can't make the club in the tub. And Risner is hurt. And the one thing Risner is going for him is Michael Juergens cratered on Saturday. He was atrocious. He had a Garrett Bradbury special.
Which was weird. It was such a good game the week before.
And now I think we're starting to see why he was a 7th-round pick. That doesn't mean he's destitute. That doesn't mean he's never going to be anything. But it's definitely something to consider and be aware of, because you can't have those kind of crater games. You can't. But he's going to learn from it, and he's hopefully going to be better for it. And that's helping him, because if Juergens had played really well, they ain't going to keep Risner. Because we were talking your second guard off the bench. Feeney right now is number 1. Your second one is probably going to be either Michael Juergens or Dalton Risner. If it's Juergens, why would you keep Risner? There's no cost benefit to keeping him. There just isn't. So I really don't think Risner makes the team. He has not received a single first team rep, which is why I don't think that he's even in the discussion to be a starter on this football team. And he's been out for 2 weeks. I don't see it. I don't see him making the squad at all.
Mm-hmm. And Dalton, I think Robinson they're going to try to get him on the practice squad.
Mm-hmm. They do like Robinson. But I think because of Risner being out, that's also why Ed is playing more snaps. I think they were going to play him some snaps on Saturday regardless. But you don't have a lot of depth on the offensive line without Risner. And it's not like you can put him on injured reserve and sign a guy. You have 90-man rosters right now. That's not how it works, unfortunately. So I think when you kind of take a look at this all-encompassing, Ed Ingram is the right guard, Blake Brandel is the left guard, and I think Dalton Risner is going to be looking for a new job come August 27th at 3 p.m. Central.
Could be. We'll find out.
Yeah. Let's
got a couple more. Too.
Yeah.
Be interesting if Ed plays Saturday.
I don't think he will. That's my guess. I don't think you're going to see a lot of higher end guys. I think you're going to see a lot of guys who are fringe bubble guys making the team. I think you're not even going to see Mullins. You're going to see Jaron Hall and Matt Corral at quarterback. So we'll find out, but a couple other tidbits from the game, and then we're going to finish off talking about the Brian Flores stuff because I think it's very interesting. Lewis Cine. Dave, what do we do with Lewis Cine? It's a very difficult conversation because there's so many variables to talk about with him. We've kind of given up on him. It took me longer than most, but I think I'm opening the door for the possibility of him being good. Here's why. The leg injury he had could have been debilitating for you or me. An average to above average human who's not an elite level athlete. He's an elite level athlete. And he was back last year, but he just didn't feel the same. Well, he's now 2 years removed from that injury. Maybe he's just back. And maybe everything's just starting to click for him. I can't say it's for sure yes. I can't say it's, he's absolutely going to be great. He's absolutely going to figure it out. We don't know. There's so many variables here. But after that performance, he played every defensive snap. He looked good.
And almost half of the special team snaps.
Mm-hmm. He was making good, crisp decisions. He was explosive. He got a sack. He got a pick. He got a PBU. He got a tackle for loss. He got 10 tackles in the open field. There's a real possibility he's just a good football player. And it's really hard to parse that out because of how rough the first 2 years of his career were. But injuries played a major factor. And because injuries played a major factor, it makes it really difficult to try and project out and try to understand, what is this? Is this an aberration? Is this showing real growth? And I think we're going to find out over the course of the next week. And if he makes the team into the regular season, he's an elite level athlete who's recovering from a borderline debilitating injury. Maybe we were just too hard on him and didn't understand how long it was going to take him to recover. I think we need to open our minds to that possibility because he seemed to have just figured it out. No, it's against second and third teamers. And I don't think we can say with confidence that he's figured it out completely. But I think the answer that he's a destitute bust, I don't think that's a certainty anymore. And I want to see more. I want to understand what Lewis Cine is going to be. Is he somebody that you might be able to count on to be a contributor either this year or next year? And maybe he's never going to live up to the potential of what he was supposed to be. But maybe he does. I don't know, man. It's a really tough one with Lewis Cine because you have to understand all of those factors. And I will shout out Sports Illustrated's Will Ragetz, who said that he talked to people in the building and said because of how he played, he's making the squad. So that's worth noting too. And he has a lot of things going for him because he has a fully guaranteed contract and he has elite level athleticism and investment. Those three things his contemporaries will not have. So if they're anywhere close to even, guess who's keeping the job? Cine.
Now,
if it's Cine versus Jay Ward, it's going to be Cine.
Right. Now, Cole, thank you for the super chat. And he says, sorry to backtrack, but he thought that he remembers Ingram playing center when he first came here, is there a chance he could be moved there and Juergens to right guard?
So thank you, Cole, for the super chat. The Ingram center experiment did not last long, and I don't think they're going back to it. He was a rookie. They wanted to try getting him some snaps as more of an emergency guy. They never really followed up on it. I think it was just a training camp thing. So I think we can just kind of rule that out completely. As far as Juergens maybe playing guard, he played guard last year at Wake Forest. He has the flexibility to be a center and a guard. So I think that's a good thing. I think you'll be able to see him in both spots if he were to come off the bench, and I'm not going to worry about it. As far as like a long-term replacement, I don't know, maybe. We'll see how things manifest over the next years. Maybe the Vikings don't want to pay Ingram on an extension, and they want to slide somebody in there, and maybe Juergens is that guy. But I'm not going to put 2 and 2 together that, hey, maybe Ingram goes to center. I think if they were going to do that, it would have been a 2022 thing. Yeah, so seeing Dave, I thought was interesting. Also, defensive tackle number 94, Taki Taimani. He was good. He was really good. Interesting player. The Vikings gave him $95,000 guaranteed as an undrafted free agent. And they were excellent, Dave. Really good in stopping the run, in attacking.
He was getting some penetrations on passes.
Yeah.
He was pushing guys back.
He was really good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The defensive linemen, undrafted free agents, look really promising. So I think it'll be intriguing to see who makes the team and who gets on the practice squad, or maybe one of these guys gets traded, or maybe they get claimed on waivers.
These are young guys playing at the bottom of the roster, playing against other young guys on the bottoms of their rosters. It's
absolutely.
It's not like they're doing this against ones. We hope to see the development. And see, that's what makes the evaluation for the coach hard. Because they're going to be looking at it and goes, oh, man, he had a good game. But he went against scrub Joe Blow over here. How is he against a starter?
If you can't do it against Joe Blow, you ain't doing it against a starter.
Well,
so that's
without a doubt.
That's a part of the evaluation too.
Yeah, you got to make that check mark. And then it is, can we keep developing him? Is there a way? Does he still have more? Can we get more out of him? And all those go into the, hey, we're going to keep this guy. We're going to try to, sneak him to the practice squad, or we're going to have to put him on the 53 because somebody else will grab him and we like him too much. We'll find out. That's
absolutely
being coach and personnel guys, especially the coaches, because they're the ones that are making the majority of the decisions here at the end of this week, is going to be all-nighters, very little sleep as they, get down to the last, hey, we're down to 58 people. We got to get to 53, and everybody's like, oh, my guy's dead.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be that
all right. Let's finish the show with discussion about the comments from Tua Tagovailoa about Brian Flores. Now, we kind of already had heard rumblings about some of this, so let me pull up the actual quote. So Tua was on the Dan Le Batard show with Stu Gatz, and if you don't know, Le Batard is a longtime Miami columnist, and then he went national with ESPN. So Miami is his roots. He is from Miami. He lives in Miami. Miami is his home. I believe his dad is Cuban as well. So it's a very central part of who Dan Le Batard is. So Tua goes on the show. I believe they're actually at the Dolphins facility, and they talk about Brian Flores. And he says this about the difference between working for Brian Flores and working for Mike McDaniel. Quote, to put it in the simplest terms, if you woke up every morning and I told you, you suck at what you did, that you don't belong, that you shouldn't be here, that this guy should be here, that you haven't earned this right, and then you have somebody come in and tell you, dude, you are the best fit for this, like you're accurate, you are the best, whatever you are this, you are that, how would it make you feel listening to one or the other? You see what I'm saying? And then you hear it. You hear it regardless of what it is, the good or the bad. And then you hear it more and more. You start to actually believe that. I don't care who you are. You can be the president of the United States. You have a terrible person that's telling you things that you don't want to hear, that you probably shouldn't be hearing. You're going to start to believe that about yourself. And so that's sort of like what ended up happening. And it was, I mean, it's been 2 years of training that out of not just me, but, a couple of the guys as well that you have, you're here since my rookie year, all the way come out, end quote. So essentially, he called Brian Flores a terrible person. And it's a tough one because I want to clarify it here. We are only hearing one side of the story. And this is not to say what Tua is saying isn't true. But in a similar way to the criminal justice system, innocent until proven guilty, in situations like this, we have to remember there are 3 sides to every story. Your side, my side, and the truth. Because each side is going to have some kind of inherent bias, whether intentional or unintentional, at their disposal. So there's always going to be some middle ground that ends up being the complete truth. And that's not a slant on Tua. That's not trying to be pro Brian Flores. Any conversation where 2 people have a different viewpoint, there's always going to be those 3 sides. That's just kind of a fact of life. It also doesn't surprise me that Flores was a hard ass. That shouldn't surprise anyone. Why should it not surprise anyone? Because he comes from the Bill Belichick, Bill Parcells coaching tree. And that is what you do. It is a very antiquated, old school approach. Bill Belichick obliterated Tom Brady in practices, in the film room. He would do it in front of the entire team. Basically called Tom Brady a worthless piece of garbage. Like, some people can handle that. Dave, you grew up in an era where that was common. That was how you handled things. That was how coaching was done. And I'm not going to sit here and say that it was right or wrong, but you heard some of these same things about Mike Zimmer. They were from the same coaching tree. Now, how much of that's on Tua? How much of that's on Flores? And just because this happened with Flores in Miami, does that mean that he's this guy now? I don't think so. And I want to refer you to something that Kevin O'Connell said after the game, today after those comments came out. Because Judd Zolgad of Purple Daily asked this question, and kudos to Judd. Kevin O'Connell, quote, I don't particularly have a comment on, something that took place with another team, or I don't like to comment on, comments of other players on other teams. But I can just tell you, I know the players Flores works with. He's got great relationships. He really has. I know you guys have heard a lot of them talk about how much they enjoy playing for him and how much I enjoy working with him every day. And that's all you know. That's all I can really comment on. And I just like to leave it at that, end quote. I think that's a really smart response from Kevin O'Connell. It's a very politically correct response. And it's also just addressing that, hey, I know that he's great in this building. People have great relationships with him. I have a great relationship with him. But I'm also not saying that it's not true, because I'm not going to disparage another person, especially another person's experiences. I thought he handled that incredibly well. It's a really tough one to parse out, but I think it's just the story of this guy was an old school coach who used an old school approach, and it did not work with somebody who's from a newer generation. This kind of approach probably works in the 1980s, early 1990s, but some guys cannot handle that in today's day and age. Hell, some guys back then couldn't handle it either, but it was incredibly more commonplace than it is today. You don't have to be all sunshine and rainbows. You have to have tough love. You have to be able to discipline and raise your voice and have those really difficult conversations. And I think one of the things with Kevin O'Connell is I think there was worries that, hey, maybe he's a little too ducky and bunny. Then we saw the clip from receiver where he cussed out the entire locker room after the Eagles game. I think you have to have a balance of, I'm going to be your friend, but I'm also going to give you tough love. By the sound of these comments from Tua, Flores was kind of forced upon having Tua and did not want him as his quarterback, but had to. It's a tough one. It's a very tough one. But I think it's also safe to say that, you know what, it didn't work there, but it feels like Flores has really figured things out. We're going to hear from Flores on Tuesday afternoon at about 12:40, I believe, is when he's speaking. And I think that's going to be really, really cool to kind of hear what Flores has to say in response, if he has anything to say at all.
And there's a lot of people that want to come play with him. And as Dalton brought up, Zimmer's getting people back too. So,
some people love Zimmer. And I think a great way to truly understand the style of coaching is Ty Dunn of I think it's Go Long. His Substack. He wrote 2 pieces on Brian Flores. One of them was guys who love and adore him and would do anything for him and loved playing for him. And the other side was people who absolutely hated his guts and couldn't wait to leave because they thought he was a miserable prick as a head coach. I think that dichotomy is kind of what you're seeing with what Brian Flores was in Miami. Because guys did follow him. Guys, a couple guys went to Pittsburgh. He's got a couple guys here. Guys do love him. But it's also a difficult style of coaching in the year 2024. Or in this case, it would have been 2020 and 2021 with Tua.
Mm-hmm.
So it's good to know. Yeah, go ahead.
Talks about you make millions. You should be able to deal with it.
I think there's some merit to that, but I also think there's merit to it doesn't matter how much or how little money you make, you deserve to be treated with respect in your workplace. I think there is, and sports are such an interesting dynamic. They are different than any other workplace. It's not like a restaurant or a Target. I couldn't scream at somebody working at Buffalo Wild Wings. Dave, if you were a manager at Target, you couldn't scream at somebody in electronics working there. But you can do that
in the military.
Yeah, you can do that in sports. So it's different. Now, you don't need to be duckies and bunnies, but I think there's a level of respect, and it feels like Tua did not feel respected based on hearing his comments. But things are going really well for Flores here, and I wonder how much of that is due to him spending a year with Mike Tomlin.
I don't know. That may help too. And we're all, a result of all our choices and then some of the influences that we experience throughout life. So,
absolutely. David, I haven't been paying attention to the comments a whole lot in the last little bit. Was there anything in the comments that we should discuss before we get out of here tonight?
Not that I'm seeing, but I may have missed it as well. It is what it is. I hear, Kubler, most important job in the NFL right now is QB. It'd be, why would you have a defensive guy as head coach? And for the most part, you're right, T. Kubler. That seems to be the way it's going, but every once in a while you'll get, like when Zimmer was hired, this division was being dominated by the Packers and some of the time at the Bears, and they just wanted to figure out a way to how to stop it. And the way to stop it was with the defense, and that's exactly what he did. So it goes through cycles. But yes, the quarterback is the most important position on the football team. And hopefully you get a coach that believes the same thing or at least knows how to hire somebody to do it for him.
I also think it's important to note that I think the defensive coach thing is a little antiquated. Like, I understand it. And it stinks to have your quarterback, whenever an offensive coach does really well, that they move on because you have defensive head coach. I mean, Lamar Jackson has a special teams coordinator as his head coach.
Well,
CJ Stroud has D'Amico Ryans as his head coach. I don't think it's quite as simple as don't hire a defensive head coach. I do understand it, and I think there's merit to it, but I also think it's about the right human, because there are plenty of offensive head coaches that should not be trusted to develop and nurture a quarterback.
I
think it's more about the man than anything. Yeah, absolutely. Adam Gase ruined Sam Darnold. I think it's about the person more than offense, defense, or special teams. I would actually be a proponent of hiring more special teams coordinators as head coaches, but that's just me. Dave, that's going to be the show tonight. Thank you, everybody, so much for joining us. If you are new here, welcome. We're very grateful to have you. Hit the like button, subscribe, and ring the bell because we go live a decent amount on this channel, and we're doing some experimentation with times, and we are going to be having a lot of fun this season. And if you're here regularly, you guys know a lot of you. Norris Fias, Dalton, Big Raylan Dad, Dave. Thank you very much. We're really appreciative of you guys sticking around and stopping by. Wednesday, we're going to have a really good show for you. And Monday, we are also going to have a really fun show. And to finish it off, we're gonna answer Dennis's question. How about Tyler's man, Bo Nix? Man, I ain't convinced about Bo Nix. I think if you loved him coming out, or you hated him coming out, or you're anywhere in between, your opinion should not change based on what you saw through those 2 preseason games. I really don't think so. If he does that in the first 4 regular season games, let's have a conversation. For right now, I don't think we've seen anything to really change our pre-draft evaluation on Bo Nix. And I say that as somebody who hated him. But even if you liked him, I don't think you've seen enough where you're like, man, I feel really good about my evaluation. I just think we need a lot more data, and we need to see it against actual NFL cornerbacks because the Packers didn't play their top 4 guys last night. The Broncos played their first team because they're still trying to figure out the starting quarterback. And I think they have. I think they're going to run with Nix.
Mm-hmm. Now, you talk about Nix. To me, it's the slobber fest that's going on with Caleb Williams right now.
Oh,
I just think it's over the top to the point where it's becoming memeish.
Mm-hmm. T. Kubler just asked if I still have a 4th round grade on Nix. Yeah, I'm not changing my pre-draft evaluation because of what I've seen in the preseason. I still don't think Bo Nix is a starting caliber quarterback in the National Football League. But I did concede if he was going to succeed anywhere, it was going to be with Sean Payton because Payton understands how to maximize a guy that just does not have the arm talent that you need to be successful. Williams, the flash is great. He's not there yet. A lot of the issues that I saw in college are going to keep manifesting in the NFL, where he just does not like to operate in structure, and he can do it. He doesn't want to. He wants to run around and play backyard football. I think it's going to get his ass beat a little bit. I think he's going to get a wake-up call. And then what happens after the wake-up call? Is he going to wake up? Or is he going to continue on the path where he's not really running the offense within structure consistently? Kurt Warner did an interview with a friend of mine in the industry, Chrissy Freud, who's a specialist with quarterback play. And Kurt Warner said it best. The best quarterbacks take the layups. Take the free yards. Take the free completions. If you can do the off-platform, out-of-structure stuff, that's great. But what is that? 2-3 plays a game? If you can't hit 6 layups, you're going to lose every time. Hit the layups. And I think that's one of the reasons why Josh Allen struggled his first couple years. Mahomes didn't always want to take the layups, and he's gotten really good at just taking them now because of how defenses have shifted to guard him. I think hitting the layups is super important, and I think Caleb Williams is going to need to get in that habit. It's not that he can't do it. It's a want. He's got a want to do it.
One last question Dave asked about the new kid we signed today, Hall. Starts with a J. So
Justin.
This weekend, we're going to see Jaron Hall throw to Justin Hall.
Yeah, Justin Hall, he's a 5'8" receiver, played the last 2 years in the USFL for the Houston Gamblers and in the UFL with the Houston Roughnecks as more of like that H or Y in the run and shoot. I don't really know a whole lot about him. I know he played at Ball State, 25 years old. He's 5'8". I'm intrigued to see what he's got. Does he have something? The Vikings worked him out a couple times during the offseason. So, yeah. Big Rail and Dad, you're going to be the last question. One, thank you. If you are already a subscriber and you want to become a member, all you have to do is go to our page and there will be a button that says, I think where the subscribe button usually is, and then you can become a member by clicking that. If you have questions, go to my Twitter, shoot me a DM. I'll walk you through it. Thank you guys so much for joining us. And we're going to be back Wednesday. If something breaks tomorrow, maybe we'll be back tomorrow, but let's be real. We had the Gilmore stuff on Sunday, and that was Dave and Darren territory, so we didn't go live for that. But we're going to have a lot more for you, and make sure you tune in to A2ZSports.com, where I have all my written work. I'm Tyler. He's Dave. Thank you so much for watching. SKOL Vikings, everybody.
SKOL. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell to get notifications. It helps us grow this community that we all love, our Minnesota Vikings. And on behalf of Tyler Forness and myself, Dave Stefano, thank you so dearly for watching the Real Forno Show. SKOL, everyone!